What's going on, guys? This is Kevin with Houndbound Brewing, and today we're going grain to glass with the British Golden Ale. Let's get to it. For this batch, we're making a total of 6 gallons, so we used about 8.34 gallons of RO water. Along with that, we added some brewing salts, which included gypsum, Epsom, and calcium chloride. If you're interested in the water chemistry for this batch, I'll attach that below, along with the recipe. So while the water's heating up, we go ahead and get our grains ready. For this, we used about 47.6% Pale Malt, 48.9% Vienna Malt, and 3.5% Honey Malt. For this specific style, I was aiming for about a 1.048 original gravity, and I didn't realize until after I was done brewing this that I had actually forgot to double mill my grains, which is something I normally do while using the claw hammer system. So we ended up with about an actual 1.042 original gravity, and instead of getting about a 5% ABV in the end, we ended up getting about a 4.7. So not too far off, but if I'm being nitpicky, I could have double milled my grains to hit my actual numbers. Once the grains are milled, we go ahead and dump them in, get the mash going, and we are looking at about a 60-minute mash at 146 degrees. So once we get the mash fully mixed in, we're going to go ahead and put the lid on, cut the circulation pump on, and let it circulate for the entirety of the 60-minute mash. So once it's fully drained, we're going to go ahead and get our hop additions ready. Our first hop addition is going to be 0.63 ounces of Cascade hops, and that's going to be for our first Wort addition. When I was originally putting this recipe together, I never had brewed a British Golden Ale before. I was very familiar with the Blonde Ale, which is pretty similar, and honestly I might submit this as both a Blonde Ale and a British Golden Ale, kind of to see which one scores better. But when I was picking out hops, I realized that Cascade is probably going to be my strongest option. That being said, Cascade has that spicy floral grapefruit character that I think would be perfect for this type of style. So now that we got the first Wort hop addition in, we get it up to a boil, and our next hop addition is not going to be until 30 minutes in. For the second hop addition, we actually used 1.18 ounces of Oz Saaz hops. For this, you're going to get a little bit of a light apricot melon flavors. That's going to add a little bit of a fruity note to my beer, but we're not using a whole lot. We're not going to get too much bitterness from this because it's looking at about 2.8 alpha acids, and that's going to go for 30 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, we're going to go ahead and put our whirlfloc tab in. And if you've watched my videos in the past, I add about 2.2 grams of Wyeast yeast nutrition to all my batches. It's not necessary, but if you can give your yeast any bit of strength to work with and make it a little healthier in the fermentation process, why not? So that's what I do for almost all my batches. With 10 minutes left, we'll go ahead and add another 0.63 ounces of Cascade hops, and this will be our second to last hop addition. Once the boil's done, we'll go ahead and get the beer down to about 180 degrees, 175 degrees, and add the last hop addition of Cascade, which is going to be another 0.63. And we'll basically let that sit in the beer as we cool down to our pitching temp. So for this beer, we wanted to get it down to about 65 degrees because that's the temperature we're going to be pitching our yeast at. And that is the temperature that we are going to ferment at for about 14 days. So once that's done, we get it transferred into the fermenter and get ready to add our yeast. For this beer, I went ahead and used the Wyeast 1098 British Ale yeast. This is a yeast that I use for most of my blonde ales, and I figured it would also be good for this style. The reason I like this yeast so much is that it leaves you with a clean, crisp flavor profile, kind of emphasizes the malt flavor in the blonde ale, and also gives you a little bit of a fruity flavor. Nothing that's going to stick out too much fruit-wise, but it's good and makes it crisp and clean. If you follow me on social media, you see that I use the Spike Flex fermenters for most of my beers, and along with that, I also have the Spike PRV. Now with the PRV, there's one or two ways you can use it. You can either start with the standard blow-off tube and add the PRV later into fermentation, but what I've been recently doing is adding the PRV right from the get-go and putting a little bit of sanitizer in it to act as an airlock. So before I go ahead and put it in the fermentation chamber, I like to set my CO2 tank to about 8 to 10 psi and go ahead and fill the tank as the starting point for this fermentation. I've done a lot of recent experimenting in reference to what fermentation process is going to give me the most success, and I came to the conclusion that utilizing my Spike PRV and placing the entire Spike system within the fermentation chamber is going to give me the ultimate success. I've just been making a lot more cleaner beer recently, and until I find something else that works even better, this is probably the process I'll use for now in the near future. Once 2 weeks is done, I go ahead and do a basic close pressure transfer into my 5-gallon keg, put my CO2 at about 10 to 12 psi and let this sit for another week at 36 degrees until this beer is perfectly carbonated. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has finally come. I present to you my British Golden Ale or Blonde Ale. That's something I'll go ahead and let the judges determine in near competitions, but I am truly satisfied with this beer. Right off the bat, you get a clean, fresh, malty character that finishes up with a nice, subtle, fruity note. Honestly, nothing that I could think about changing for this style. I think the hop balance is perfect with the malt character, and definitely will be brewing this again. Like always, thank you to everybody who watched this video. If you like what you watched and if you are interested in brewing this beer yourself, I've attached the full recipe down below along with the water chemistry. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for all upcoming videos that I have to post. Cheers!